Hello everybody and welcome to another video. A bit of news today, some exciting news given the long period of time since we've had anything Living World style. ArenaNet released information about a patch coming out in just 7 days in which we return to the Zephyrite Sanctum. So I guess you could say I was wrong on my speculation of the future of the living world, but I'm pretty happy to eat my hat about it because the Zephyrite Sanctum was, at the end of the day, one of my most enjoyed patches from last year, and I'm very happy to see it be returned. It actually seems rather logical that they would have returned it for several reasons here, and while I had an email that stated that this patch wasn't necessarily living story per se, it does look like there's going to be some story-based content added. Let me give you the information ArenaNet has given the community, which is very little. An incredibly short trailer, which you should see in the background, and a very short passage of text on their main website. The website reads, "As part of the celebration of our launch in China, we're holding an in-game festival that brings back some of the best-loved Living World content. The Zephyrites have returned to the labyrinthine cliffs to do business and trade their goods, and Queen Jenna has reopened the Crown Pavilion. Experience the joy of movement as you harness the power of the Zephyrite's aspect crystals, or put your battle skills to the test in the Crown Pavilion and Queen's Gauntlet." Also, they have a broken string of text currently on the website, which is supposed to link to a new video that's gone up on their YouTube channel. If you do a bit of digging around, you can get to it. You'll watch the very short trailer, and in the description it reads that the Zephyrite have returned to support Lion's Arch. So let's talk about that. A lot of people are going to be throwing out the idea of, oh, this is just content recycling, this is nothing new or anything to get excited about, but it does look like from the trailer, and certainly some things that have been data mined by that shaman, there's a post up on Reddit right now, it does look like the place has been decorated slightly differently with a lot more Canthan themed stuff. I believe that when we do get this patch, there's going to be some minor, very minor story progression talking about how the Zephyrite have spent this time away over the past year in Cantha, and now they have returned. This line here as well on the YouTube page that says that they've returned to support Lion's Arch is going to have to mean something. What did I discuss in my predictions video? Last year, the Zephyrites came and secured a trade agreement with Lion's Arch, which has now been destroyed. Now they have come back. What has Lion's Arch got to trade anymore? Nothing. Well, apparently, I guess they feel indebted to Lion's Arch in some way. Why would the Zephyrites feel that they have to come and support Lion's Arch? They're going to have to elaborate on that, and whether it really means anything, whether this kicks off, say, the rebuilding phase of Lion's Arch, which I still don't think will happen this year, is sort of up in the air. I also don't think all of the content can be perfectly rehashed, okay? So, again, considering the Lion's Arch stuff, think about last year we had 2 weeks with just the Sanctum, and a bunch of stuff was introduced, but then we had 2 weeks after that where the content of the Sanctum was elaborated on, and there were more mini-games added, split between Ellen Keel and Evan Nashplay. Don't forget that many of the NPCs that were in that zone were all revolving around the election. Those two characters themselves were stood on the ship. I wonder if Ellen Keel and Evan Nashblade will actually return there, and maybe it's because of their pleas that the Zephyrites have taken pity on the people of Lion's Arch and are now trying to help out. But yeah, lore aside, my point is that those election mini-games and much of the content and reason we were doing things isn't there anymore. You know, the really lazy, or I guess maybe clever, if you think about it, thing ArenaNet could do would be to bring back those mini-games, except now it's to gather supplies specifically to help Lion's Arch directly out of their crisis, and we're doing the same thing, though I think that would be a little bit cheap. This bounces further back as well with the way they handle the release. Some people think, oh, this is going to be an opportunity to gain some achievements we couldn't have before. Well, it will probably have its own new achievement category with totally different stuff on there for us to do. Maybe some things will be returning, like, you know, finding all of the little crystals all over the place and doing the cool jumping puzzle style stuff, but a lot of those achievements just cannot exist under the new format, you know, like finding all the different NPCs, because many of them might not be there anymore. That point may hold a lot more water when it comes to the Crown Pavilion stuff. For those of you who aren't aware, the Crown Pavilion was an area of Divinity's Reach that was opened up for a short while last year, in which you could farm like mad. There were two components to the Crown Pavilion. There were the lower levels where you could zerg around in champ trains, which dropped tons of champion bags. This was the update champ bags came in the game, right? Dropped tons of those bags and gave loads of people tier 6 mats. The value of tier 6 mats went way down during this patch last year, and I would expect it to go way down this patch as well. It's like the epitome of a great farm patch that they did last year. That was one component where you could zerg around doing the champ train style stuff, and there was also another component where you were in the rafters mile above the champ trains, where you could fight in 1v1 arenas, not against other players, against AI, against increasingly difficult encounters, powers, and you could even toggle like gambits on that would make things even harder for you. Say, for example, you are permanently burning, I think was one. If you manage to beat enemies while you're under these circumstances, you would actually get more gold for completing them. And so even these, for players that got really good and had the right classes for it, became great ways of farming. There was a specific farm against one of the enemies called Deadeye, and that Deadeye farm could get you loads of gold, and I'm actually very much interested in trying it this year. Over on the Crown Pavilion side of things, though, the devs did also state that they would be changing things up a little bit last year when the arenas return. They always said this stuff would return, but they did state that they wanted to patch things and improve things. I wonder whether they've had the time to do that. Don't forget, as a company, they've just come out of the China release, which has taken a lot of their attention, and they are hard at work at Season 2 Living World stuff, real Living World things. I don't think they fully consider it, mostly because of the email I got, to be a standard real Living World patch. I don't think this is necessarily the start of Season 2, and that will come further down the line, and that's where most of their focus is going to be. It makes a lot of sense for them as a company to rehash these old updates for us, but there are going to have to be changes here and there. Another reason why this makes an awful lot of sense is this was supposed to come out with a feature patch. They did announce to us that many of the mats that came from the end of Season 1 Living World things, namely blade shards, would have a vendor for them. They also told us that stuff like PvP materials that were now made redundant would also have a vendor, but they just deleted that stuff. Blade shards, though, are still obviously in the game. They're used for crafting things, but there is a ridiculous abundance of them. I still have a full tab of my bank filled with the damn things, and I've kept them because the devs said that there would be a merchant we could sell them to. One of the biggest things that the Zephyrite Sanctum did last year was it helped balance the economy in terms of certain items that were completely flushed through the game. People had tons of them, and there were so many it was very unlikely they'd ever become an interesting part of the market. So they added a vendor so people could just sell them in bulk and get a reasonable amount of profit out of them. I am sure that when the Zephyrite Sanctum returns this year, we'll finally be able to sell our blade shards and maybe some other things too, like maybe the lost belongings and some of those other weird materials we saw throughout Season 1. Some other things I'm curious about too. Last year when they released the Zephyrite Sanctum, we got 2 mini-games with it. Beyond the election missions that you could do, we had 2 mini-games. We had Sanctum Sprint and we had South Sun Survival. Since then in the game, we've always been able to play those, but they've been on a daily rotation. I wonder, because the Zephyrite Sanctum is returning, maybe we'll get permanent access to them again, or even better, maybe they'll improve them in some way. Specifically South Sun Survival, if you've ever looked at the map while playing it, you'll notice that there are potentially lots of other camps and areas it could be played in on South Sun Cove. It's just that they're locked out. I would love to see when this thing returns that maybe we get to play South Sun Survival in another quarter of the map, and then maybe that's the permanent bit that's available to us, and the other regular South Sun Survival is the one that remains on its daily rotation. But that's about it, guys. I know it's a slightly shorter video, but that's really all they've announced. It is something to be excited about. We are coming up on the 1-month mark since the feature patch. People have been looking for more content, and it's only 7 days away. At the end of the day, they're adding basically 2 new zones to the game for us to explore, enjoy, and hopefully get a bunch of achievements out of also. There's opportunities here for them to expand it on what we saw last year in many places, but don't go too over the top with what you expect, because as I say, I do think that they are still focusing on other stuff, mainly the core Season 2 things. Anyway, I guess I'll keep you guys up to date as the patch comes closer, and I'll have a video once it's actually out talking about all the things that really did change. Let me know what you think. Is this enough to sate you while waiting for Season 2? I'd be very curious to hear. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.